we've talked to quite a few people recently, and they've asked like about how many Americans live in Porto, and it seems like there's a lot. And I was like, well, the really tricky thing is, how do you know a resident versus a tourist? Because I think most of the time when I hear American English on the streets, these people are tourists.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not living here. I mean, I
Yeah.
can kind of tell by either like what they're doing at the time or
Their lost
what they're
look.
talking about. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So today we are here with expats everywhere, Kalie and Josh, or Josh and Kalie. And I never know who goes first. Maybe you switch off. But anyway, I am so happy to have you guys. And if you guys can just say a little bit more about who you are, that would be great.
yeah, so I'm Josh. This is Kalie. We're both from
Or
the U.S.
Kalie and Josh. However you
No,
wanna
we
do
go
it.
by Josh and Kalie online, I think. At least that's the way Google will pull us up. Yeah, so we're both from the U.S., from different parts. We kind of grew up with different backgrounds, but when we were in university, we both kind of had this wanderlust and desire to travel. So we found each other, and abroad we went in 2009.
And then
Wow.
no looking back since then.
So you met in university. What were you studying?
So we actually went to different universities. I was studying psychology and Josh was getting his MBA, so in business. So nothing of really what we did when we first moved abroad, because we got into teaching, which we can talk about that if you would like. But we went to different universities, but we both played soccer. So that's kind of the connection, how we met. So our universities at the time were in the same conference. So we played against each other. And obviously I played for the women's team, Josh played for the men's team. But then when he graduated, he started coaching for his women's team. So we were kind of big rivals, and that's how we met.
Yes.
That's so cool. I was talking to somebody recently who said that they thought one or both of you had played, and they weren't
Yeah.
sure so it was both of you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And are you still playing?
Not really. I mean, Josh does pick up every once in a while.
Yeah.
It's a little harder now that we have a daughter, and the pickup here, it like starts at like 10 p.m. It's so late. So obviously both of us can't do that because one of us has to be with our daughter home. She's already asleep by then. But Josh likes playing a lot more than I do now. For me, it was nice when I finished university. It felt like a bit of a job for me because I was on a scholarship and it was really intense. So I was like excited to have a bit of a break from it. And I like playing recreationally, but I prefer games and something a little more competitive, whereas Josh can just go out and play pickup. So he's done that everywhere we've lived along the way. And mine has kind of ebbed and flowed. So Josh is playing a little bit here though.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Trying
I
to stay
bet.
fit.
Yeah, well, and it's big here, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I have a friend whose girlfriend plays women's football here.
Mm.
Yeah, and she plays
Professionally or recreationally?
yeah, professionally, but I don't know the level of the teams, and she's not like
Sure.
the top level, but yeah,
Mm.
professionally, yeah.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's super into it. It's so cute. So yeah, so I'd like to know where, because I know it's been 5 countries that you've lived in.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. When we got started, um we were just trying to move to Europe. And that was kind of the big idea. And we looked at Europe as being like the US in terms of each country as like a state, and geographically kind of spread out. But we had started our relationship long distance. We were dating long distance, and initially we both got jobs in two different countries. And we're like, that's fine. That'll be like,
What we do now.
what we do now in long distance relationship and da 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 da. Well, I mean, like, cut to the chase, we ended up both getting jobs in Spain in the end, and we thought it was going to be Barcelona and Madrid, but then ended up being both of us in Madrid. Kalie actually in the suburbs just outside of the city proper, and then I was in the city proper. But yeah, we started out in Madrid, Spain, and lived there for 2 years before getting the itch to check out Asia, a place that neither one of us had ever been, something that we don't see in our history books and you learn in the civics classes in the States. So it was a place that was very unknown to us and one that we were excited to travel to.
Yep. So after Madrid, we got married and then we left for South Korea. That was the first place we landed in Asia, and we were there for 2 years. What we had done is Josh was he was getting a second master's in multicultural and bilingual education in Madrid. And then with that, he has practicum to teach. And then our second year, he was just a teacher there. And I always thought teaching sounded awful. I never wanted to be a teacher. I had friends in university who were going that route, and I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. So when we first moved, I was an au pair. So I lived with the family that I worked for. But eventually, when we said, well, let's continue doing this, what's the best way of doing it at the time, especially teaching English as a second language was really big. So it was like, well, if we want to continue doing this and be able to base ourselves in different parts of the world, to be able to experience different cultures and travel, then teaching is probably the way to go. So then I started getting my credentials when we were in Spain. We got married and went to Korea, and we both taught there. I taught at an elementary school, and Josh taught his first year was a high school and then a university his second year. And after, a year and a half, we're like, okay, what's next? Where should we go? Yeah. And that's when Josh really was like, I want to check out the Middle East. And I was like, that's fine. We can check out the Middle East, but anywhere besides Saudi Arabia. Well, we ended up in Saudi Arabia.
Yes, we were in Saudi for a year, and then
teaching at a university,
and we had taken a trip to Singapore, and we fell in love with Singapore. And actually, that first night in the hotel, I started looking for jobs in Singapore, and ended up one of the first schools that we saw was the one that we got jobs with, like 6 months later. Mm-hmm. And then we moved life again. Lived in Singapore for 4 years. When we were coming up on the end of 4 years, we didn't think that we would re-sign a contract. We didn't re-sign that contract. Found out Kalie was pregnant, so it was like, okay, now what are we gonna do? So the move kind of took a twist that we didn't expect, and then rolled around into late 2019. We pushed into 2020, had the baby, and then COVID hit. So like our moving from place to place was really choppy during that period of time before arriving here in Portugal.
Right, because when we had decided to leave Singapore, we wanted to get back to Europe. We had been in Asia at that point for about 10 years. And so we're like, let's get back to Europe. Yeah. And we looked at a few different places that we had visited before. We really liked Ljubljana, Slovenia. So we were looking into jobs there. And then we really liked Portugal. Porto was one of the places we really loved. When we lived in Spain, we traveled to a lot. So we knew we would really like Porto. And job-wise, it wasn't really, we couldn't find jobs for teaching. So we're like, well, what if we went into Expats Everywhere full time? Because at that point it was a bit of a hobby, a side hustle. And we're like, maybe we could do this and just have the flexibility of working for ourselves. So that was kind of the mindset in 2019. Then we're like, okay, I'm pregnant now. What should we do? So we had planned on coming to Portugal, but via the US first to have her there, because I didn't want to have to deal with, I have a doctor in Singapore. And then if we had planned on visiting the US for a little bit, so a doctor there, and then moving to Portugal, 6 or 7 months pregnant, and then having to figure it out. So it's like, let's just stay in the US a little longer, have her there, and then we'll move. Well, she was born in January of 2020. And so when we were supposed to be moving, that's again,
the world shut down
when COVID hit. So we were kind of stuck in the US for a little bit.
Mm. And where are you guys from in the US?
I grew up in Florida, Tampa area.
And I grew up in a relatively small town on the border of Virginia and Tennessee.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. You have no accent.
City girl, small town boy.
But we both like cities. Yeah.
That's funny. And so you chose Portugal or Porto specifically because you've been here before? That was your reason? Like, what about the D7 visa or, what?
Yeah, the D7 visa played a huge part, because when we were living in Spain at the time, and we realized we had this epiphany that Portugal was better than Spain.
Still feel that way.
We started to look like, how can we get jobs? And, at the time we were looking at it from the point of view of being a teacher. This was pre-Brexit. Most of the English, like the ESL jobs, were being taken by British people. Much easier for them. They didn't need a work visa. And then we started to look at like, are there any visas that Americans can get? And at the time, the answer was no. And when we left Europe, I think it was 2012, is when the D7 visa started. So we didn't know, like it happened. We didn't know because it was like in our rear view mirror. Yeah. And then when we made the decision to leave Asia, come back to Europe, or get back to European lifestyle, we started looking at different countries. And the first country on our list was actually Slovenia. and we started to look at, what would it be like getting a visa there. And then, Portugal came back on the radar, and then we were like, hey, this D7 visa thing, I think we qualify for it. So that was kind of an important factor in it. Obviously, we had our love for Portugal and Porto specifically, but we didn't have a pathway that we knew of until we discovered the D7 visa.
Yeah, because at that time too, the D8 didn't exist. So the D7 was just, a lot of people would call it the retiree visa, but it really was just living off of individual revenue. So with expats everywhere, with that type of like remote job, and then we also had property in the States that we were renting out. So combined wise, we're like, we can actually get this visa.
Right. Yeah, it's a kind of a low income. I mean, it's not huge. It's not a huge
Yeah.
amount that's needed. So for passive income, which is nice and might change. We don't know. So do you guys think that you're going to stay in Porto, or in Portugal? Is this your home, or are you itching to try somewhere else?
That's a great question.
That's a loaded question, because I mean, like the second part of it, are we itching to move somewhere else? The answer is no. We're
not yet.
We're not yet. We're building a property, or redeveloping a property, which we'd love to be able to finish and move into, and experience that for a while, because we've been renting for quite some time while living abroad. We've been doing this 15, 16 years,
Wow.
16 years, I guess, at this point. And it's always been like, we can't even hang a picture on the wall because we're afraid of,
well, we could,
the
but then you have
deposit
to,
and all
you have
that.
to pay to paint the walls and all that stuff.
Yeah. So there's some things that we haven't done and we've put off, in terms of life stuff, because we've been renters. So I think that we're definitely here for now. But who knows? Like, we've moved a lot, obviously. Like, we just gave the rundown on, how many countries we've been to in such a short time. So I could see us moving again, but we love Portugal.
And so far, this is the longest place we've lived. So it was Singapore, but now we've been here for 5 years. And I think a big change as well is now we have a daughter. So you just don't want to have to move around a lot, right? You want a little bit of stability there. And okay, she's 5. So now is a bit of an easier time to do it. But as she gets a little older, she's going to be having friends and in her school and set. And so, taking that into consideration, obviously, what does schooling look like for her? And, is there a better place for us to go that school would be better? So she's kind of the X factor when it comes to how long we'll be here. And could we potentially go somewhere else for school, but then end up back in Porto, because we do love Porto. So
I think that's highly likely
that we would leave, maybe leave because of just schooling options, and then come back to Porto.
Yeah,
because it's an easy place to live.
Yeah.
What are the schooling options? Because I have friends whose kids go to school here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have a lot of options, actually. So you've got the public system if you want to get in there, and then you've got private, which mostly private is done in Portuguese. So right now she's in a preschool and it's a private Portuguese. So she's good with the language, so it would be easy to transition. Probably going into the private sector, we have a lot of friends who have kids around the same age, and they're saying that private's a little better now than public. It used to always just be public, but they're seeing some cracks and some problems with public. So even our Portuguese friends are leaning more towards the private. And then you have, of course, international options, which Porto is, I feel like, a little lacking in that. The Lisbon area has more, but it's like, if we're going to move from Porto, we're not going to go down to Lisbon. We'd rather go to a different country for the international options. So right now she does education in Portuguese, which we're fine with. But I think later on in life, in maybe middle school and definitely high school, education should switch to English, because it's just going to open up more opportunities for universities.
And the other thing I wanted to add on to that is, we were kind of warned a couple of years ago, as we got our daughter into a private Portuguese school, that with the education system here and the way the society and work culture is, in the public system, there are a lot of strikes. And therefore it's what do parents do with the kids when the kids can't go to school because the teachers aren't showing up or whatever? It can get really problematic, and apparently these strikes happen quite often. And then with what we do, we need not to be pushing our schedule and pushing off meetings and stuff like that. We need to have kind of that predictable structure for our workday, which I think most people can relate to.
Right. That's interesting. I know more people, I shouldn't say unfortunately, that don't work.
Well, this is what most people can relate to, maybe in their
They
past.
used to work.
They
Yeah.
used to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think that people that listen to the podcast and watch, they're working. But I have a lot of expat friends here who are
Yes.
retired at 40, which that's
Oh,
awesome. But yeah, I can't relate to that.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. When did you start your YouTube channel? Because you have a lot of content that's prior to Portugal, but you
Yeah.
were more dabbling in it.
Ooh, dabbling. Yeah, I guess so. I guess you could say that. So, I mean, our content creation journey started off when we were living in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Um, for those that have lived in Saudi Arabia, especially not a large city, so we weren't in a very fun city, if you will.
It
Like
wasn't one of the bigger
there
ones.
weren't
Yeah.
many amenities, things
Okay.
to do. So what would happen is you'd live like a compound life. You would be on the compound and doing things within your four walls. And
Um,
what we saw, the pattern that got played out, and also what we were warned with, is that if you didn't have a hobby, then you could go a little crazy.
oh.
So we started to look at the different ideas of things to do, and um, we were networking and working really with a bunch of people who had lived in other places, and we decided that we wanted to create this channel that gave them a platform to talk about their experience. and
Um,
and the idea was that it was going to be a lead funnel for people then to come and use our services to find out more information about how to move abroad.
Hmm.
So many
We got asked
people,
that a lot.
yeah, so many
How do you do what
people
you're
would
doing?
ask us how we were doing what we were
yeah.
doing, and then that was kind of the impetus to start the channel. And we created a huge backlog of videos of people that we worked with in
Wow.
Saudi, in other, like, talking about other countries. We only made a couple videos about Saudi, but we talked about the other countries that they'd been to, because rarely did you find someone where Saudi was their first country
Yeah.
abroad. Usually
You
they were
don't do
like a
that.
veteran of the game.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, we created the channel back in 2015,
Oh, wow.
and then we continued to create videos while living in Singapore as, like, yeah, a hobby side hustle. And then in 2019, we made the decision as we were leaving
Right.
Singapore, we saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and it was like, let's try to make this YouTube thing like full time.
Right.
And then by like late 2020, it happened really for both of us, where we were earning enough and there was enough hours in the day, or enough hours of work to do in a week, that we could both like dedicate ourselves fully to YouTube.
And at
But
that
it's
point,
evolved.
yeah, it kind of shifted from that point because for the first several years, we weren't on camera at all. We were interviewing other people and getting their experiences. And then we were told, you want people coming back to your channel, so you need to be on there because they want to come and see you.
Yeah.
So then, of course, COVID hit, and it's like no one's moving anywhere. How are we going to talk about like moving abroad when no one can move? So we just decided, well, we're still in our journey of moving to Portugal. And although it's a little delayed, we're just going to turn the camera on ourselves and explain to everyone what we're doing. So, no one was going anywhere, and we are just walking in, like we were staying with my parents, and we're walking, the baby in the neighborhood and just like filming ourselves. And that's kind of how that started. So I think people started understanding a bit more about us and wanting to follow us. And then that's why Portugal ended up becoming a lot more popular, and kind of like the thing we focused on because people wanted to see our journey to Portugal.
Right. Right. That's cool. That's great. So do you get a lot of
Sure.
slack from using the word expat?
Oh, that is an awesome question. I'm
Yeah.
glad that you asked us that. Let's unpack this.
Yeah,
I mean,
please.
the the short answer is not really. Like, if you look at the total amount of comments that come in,
Right.
um, what's happened over the past several years is it's been very difficult to understand when people are being sarcastic or when they're genuinely asking, like, what is an expat? Or because people will get in the comment section and it's like, like, let me calm down. How should I read this? Should I read this as they're being antagonistic, or they just haven't heard the term before?
Right.
Because what we've actually found is when we first started living abroad, we didn't know the term expat. Like, we learned it while living abroad, but when we were just back in the US, before moving, we had no idea this term existed.
Hmm.
And then we move abroad and we start to hear this term,
use it
getting used,
yeah,
and in different ways. Not that the definition is that wide in terms of the way we were hearing it used, but for different types of people, different types of workers or whatever. And then, we do a little bit of digging about the origin of the word or history of the word. And that's mixed as well.
It is. It really
But but like ultimately for us, we have a definition for it that makes sense to us based on our experience and what we've seen. And if someone wants to call us an immigrant, fine. We
Yeah.
don't have a negative view of immigrant.
Yeah.
However, we know that just as expat has for some people a negative connotation, immigrant also does.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you win? And the reason we chose expats everywhere as a name is because immigrants everywhere doesn't sound good. Like in terms of it has
Exactly.
two problems with it. One is it could sound like we're a law firm, and that's boring. So you don't want that vibe. And then two, for those people that view immigration as negative, it has a negative connotation.
Right.
So
But essentially for us, the reason why we use expats is because we view ourselves as expats in the sense that we're not moving from our home country with the intent of like, we go to this one place and this is it. We've left our home country. Our life is now in this new country and we are growing roots and we're here and that's it. Like for us, an expat's always been more of like a medium term kind of idea of I'm living in this country for a couple of years, or my company has moved me over here with the intent that it's only going to be like a 5-year contract because I'm doing something and then I'm going back to my home country, or they're going to move me somewhere else. Or, that's what we found was a lot more of the expat world, like especially when we lived in Singapore. That was really, really big. A lot of companies were moving, Americans or Australians or, even like French and Spanish and everything. They were going there for a work contract and then they would be going back or go somewhere else.
Yeah.
So for us, that's what the expat life was. And so it was almost like a revolving door in a sense, not, every couple months, but every couple of years, as opposed to, I think when we think of immigration, it's a lot more of a long-term thought. So it's like I'm moving from here to here, and this is where I'm living now the rest of my life. It doesn't mean you necessarily have to, but it's with the intent of this is it. This is my life now here. So for us, it's always been a bit not transient, but a bit more mobile, less, shorter term, a couple years, 5 years, as opposed to moving around like a digital nomad, for example, or a full on I'm moving and this is my life. So that's why we chose expat. It's more of the in between medium term.
And that's the audience that we want to target. And it's not like, so retirees for us are different. Like if a retiree is wanting to go and live the rest of their days in another country, for us, that's an immigrant. They're immigrating and they're an immigrant, and that's fine. There's no negativity about that. However, there are some retirees who are like, we're going to dabble here in Portugal, and then we're going to go to Spain, and then we're going to try out France, and then Italy, maybe until they get to a point where their health or whatever roots them in a place longer, because you never know when that hits. But classically for us, a retiree, it's tricky to call them an expat because you don't know what their motive is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've never felt that either term is better than the other.
No.
So sometimes you get people in the comments who want to make it seem like there's a superiority to one of them, generally expat. And it's like, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
Like it's just how we're defining it. And I mean, if people want to say we're immigrants because we've been in Portugal for 5 years, sure. But also in our minds, we're not here forever. Like we didn't move to Portugal with the mindset that this was it.
Yeah.
We've just happened to be here for 5 years now, but it could have been that we left after 2 years because, that was kind of what we were doing beforehand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because I get a lot of, on Substack, I got somebody that just, I get a lot of brutal comments about the word expat. And they're mean. And then a guy like stalked me and was sending me emails about how I'm an entitled C word and on and on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, really bad. But, it's also, I think, I don't know. I think that maybe they find it easier because I'm a solo female that they can just put me down. I don't know. Maybe that's not true, but I get a lot of slack for it. And to the point where they're calling me a colonizer, which is so not true. So,
I mean, honestly, people are terrible online. Would someone come up to you and say that to your face? If you're not going to say it to someone's face, then like, why would you put it out there online? And I think honestly, people just need to get a life. Like, why can't you just be nice to people? If you disagree, you can disagree and have a debate.
Right.
But to call names and like, I'm gonna colonizer. Oh my gosh, you know, like, come on. Why? I mean, is that because of the color of your skin? Well, like, that's not right then to assume or call you names because of the color of your skin, no matter what color you are. So it's like, I don't know. People just
and it's not the actual definition of colonizing. So, you know, I'm not a government entity. I'm one person. But it's been interesting where I do say, hey, I'm really open to having a discussion. I don't say it to those people, obviously.
Yeah, because I don't think they're open to have, they don't seem like they'd be open to having a discussion.
You know, I have noticed I've leaned more into, like, when we're kind of addressing stuff on videos, I've leaned more into using the term foreigner, because it's more open, and sometimes it makes more sense in the context that it could be someone, it could be a person that is living there as an expat or immigrant, or it could be a tourist, a foreign tourist. So when you're, you know, like when you're asking a Portuguese person, what do you think of foreigners? It is like the collective non-Portuguese, like that is what we're talking about, right? Because it's sometimes really difficult to tell. Like, we've talked to quite a few people recently, and they've asked like about how many Americans live in Porto, and it seems like there's a lot. And I was like, well, the really tricky thing is, how do you know a resident versus a tourist? Because I think most of the time when I hear American English on the streets, these people are tourists.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're not living here. I mean, I can kind of tell by either like what they're doing at the time or what they're talking about. You know, it's like, so.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Well, I picked expat for me because I grew up with the word. I don't know why or how, but I grew up knowing the word, but I didn't know the actual definition. It was just somebody who moved abroad. And then I had to look up and research the definition. And I was choosing between expat on a budget and abroad on a budget, which could have two meanings, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
It's fun,
Double entendres. I love those.
And so on TikTok, I started as abroad on a budget, and I don't do TikTok anymore, but it's still there. But it wasn't as, like you said, it doesn't flow. It's just not as catchy. So anyway, I don't think we're ever going to win, but that's
no, and you know, and it's not about winning, right? It's just like,
it's not.
It's like, for the people that don't like the term expat, or they don't want that name, stop watching the content. You know, like, go on somewhere else.
I know.
Like, why be hateful?
I know. Well, they don't have a life. It's true. They don't have anything else to do, or they don't feel powerful in their life. They feel powerless or whatever. Do you guys get a lot of Portuguese commenting on your videos?
Not really. But typically when we do get Portuguese coming on the videos, it's positive.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few like long-term Portuguese viewers.
Right.
And we've actually met with several of them in real life and had lunch. And we had one guy, Paulo, who I'm hoping is watching this, took us out to an amazing lunch at a Michelin star restaurant.
We're like, okay.
It was unbelievable. Yeah. Like it was an unbelievable experience. And like, to this day, I remember the meal, the time spent with him, you know, giving him a hug before, you know, we said bye. And, you know, we see him in the comment section, certainly on the podcast. Actually, it's on all channels, but we see him on the comment section, and it's good to have that relationship and connection. Sometimes Portuguese people will get into the comments, but, you know, with the heightened immigration problems that we have here in Portugal, we have not seen an uptick of people like attacking us or the channel because of that.
Yeah, good.
That's been nice.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a little bit of that, but but you just put in filter words, and it's
to
really
block
easy.
out nonsense.
Yeah, colonizer.
We haven't had to put that one in, but I do see that sometimes getting thrown around. You know what's funny about that is that when I do see colonizer get used, it's oftentimes somebody's rebuttal to someone like an angry Portuguese person talking about immigration, and they're like, well, you guys were the colonizers originally, so just coming back full circle. And I'm like, relax, man, like, relax.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like, get that keyboard away from that person.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Huh. Yeah. And what about getting recognized on the streets?
Yeah, it
Happens.
happens.
Yeah.
It's nice. Like,
Yeah.
it's much better when people say hello than
Yeah.
like if they just like bump their partner and just like
Like stare at you
stare
and you're like,
and you know.
okay, you just walk by. Yeah.
No, we love it when people stop and say hello and let us know kind of the role that we've played in their journey. It's really fulfilling. I was actually just talking to someone yesterday about this, about how we used to be teachers and we worked in the lives of young kids, and we had an impact on them, and how good that felt. Like, I do miss the feeling of like seeing a young person change because of my work as a teacher, but we still get the the sense of helping people through what we do with our content or consultations, whatever. So that's also really fulfilling when we get the feedback from people like, you do not realize how big of an impact that you've made in our life because we took the steps needed to move abroad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how I was watching
cool.
you guys before I moved abroad, before I moved here, because I didn't move anywhere else. I just moved here. But
Yeah.
I watched you guys a lot before I moved here. And I really liked, it was really helpful to see the different, when you cover different areas, which is so funny because I just like 2 weeks ago pitched Tamar to International Living, and then you guys did your video on it. And I was like,
Oh,
That's funny.
what do you mean you pitched like you were going to write an article on tomorrow?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
probably going to write an article. Yeah, but
Nice.
the biggest reason is because I want to go visit. I want
Yeah.
to go
Yeah.
there. It's my excuse or reason. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but I have this fantasy that I'm going to love it, but I know it's too far. It's just too far. It's just too far from Lisbon. It's too far from here. It's just too far.
Is it?
I
You
mean,
think so?
I guess it is.
Okay.
It
Hour
does
and a half.
feel a little more remote.
And
I
no, it feels
mean,
more remote. It's very chill.
Yeah.
Like, it's very chill. The expat community there, or immigrant community,
Yeah, expat.
Yeah.
the foreign community there does seem to be like fairly well developed.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
The Portuguese people we talk to
Very
are
nice.
completely fine with
Yeah.
like the levels of immigration that are happening there, and they see it as a net positive. The ones we spoke to,
Wow.
all of the ones we spoke to.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
that was cool.
That's
And I
cool.
mean, well, you know, what we've noticed is like when we try with our Portuguese and speak to people in Portuguese, it's super well received. And then they'll switch to English. You know, if we get more technical or whatever, they're like, it's fine. You know, you've done your part.
Yeah,
You said bon dia,
Oh.
and like, let's just do this in English.
You've said bon dia. Now we can talk in English. No, that's not enough. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
How is your Portuguese?
It's good.
It's okay.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh, good.
I'm at the point where I feel like I understand a really good amount, but sometimes it's like I know what you're saying, but I could not have produced that myself. It would have been very choppy or yeah. But I mean, obviously we're good at restaurant stuff because you use that so much, or the things that you're using more on a daily basis. It's better when you get into harder situations and vocabulary you don't use very much. Then you're kind of like, oh, how do I get this out? And that's generally when they switch over to English because you know that their English is better than your Portuguese. And you're like, I'm really trying here. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's one of those things that you have to just keep practicing on your own. So that is hard too. Like when you've got work and just life does that I feel like that's the first thing for me that goes out the window. Like I'm not doing my daily Portuguese lessons, like just online stuff. Because we've already gone through, like we did a really intensive course, which was good. So we have, our A2 certificates for that. And, but now it's like, okay, I need to do it on my own. So sometimes that's tricky.
Yeah, I personally love when I run into a Portuguese person that doesn't speak English very well.
Yeah.
Because then I feel much more comfortable, like just giving it a go.
Yeah.
Versus when I know that their English is better than my Portuguese. Because it gets to a point where it's like both of you telepathically, it's like, what are we doing here? Let's just switch to English. What are we doing? You know?
Yeah.
But I do understand, and I feel this as well, where when you're operating in your non-native language, you're never completely yourself, especially when you're, an intermediate or beginner. Like you can't make, for me, I love making jokes and like saying silly stuff. And I just can't do that in Portuguese yet. So I'm not quite myself. Kalie pulls a whole different like voice when she talks in Portuguese.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah, she does.
I don't know why.
She did it in Spanish as well.
Oh, we lived in Spain. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that shows just how uncomfortable I am with it. Like, I'm a totally different person.
Well, we have a friend, Jesus, who was born Spanish speaker, moved to the U.S. So he's fluent at both Spanish and English. But when he speaks Portuguese, it's a character. It's almost like a caricature.
Yeah,
like it's like he's making fun of, like, some people misconstrue that he's making fun of like
the language,
Portuguese language, but he's not. It's just like this
how it comes out
thing that's happened. He sounds like an old man.
An old Portuguese man.
Yeah. And he even like the way he moves his body, and it's so funny, but he can't help it. Like, I've literally watched him have conversations with people in Portuguese, and it's like, dude, that's not your voice. Jesus, if you're listening to this, sorry for telling you.
I've never heard of that happening. That's so interesting.
It's a thing for people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like a persona.
Yes.
Huh. That's cool.
It could be to your benefit as well. Because like sometimes it'll lower your inhibitions to talk. It's like, I'm not me doing this. I'm not Josh doing this. I'm Josue.
I don't view that at all. So like, if I sound different, that's not because I feel like I'm a different person. Just the way it comes out, I guess.
But if you think about like when people put a mask on, right? Like, you act differently, like a Halloween mask or whatever. Like you become a different character. So if you do that, then you're not failing as yourself. You're failing as the character. So you can create some sort of like mental separation. No, we talked about this in my master's, my education master's. Because I don't know if Kalie said, I studied bilingual multicultural education. And a part of that was like, we talked about like the psychology of learning a second language. And it's one of the reasons why teachers would ask their students to choose a name in that language. And it's to help them subconsciously, I guess, create a character. It's like, no, it's not Josh making these mistakes. It's Pierre speaking French.
Right.
And no, I'm dead serious.
Even with French, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what I was. I was Pierre in class.
That's awesome.
I thought the name was great. I was like, let's go with Pierre.
Oh my God.
Are you going to call him Pierre now?
I think I am. I have literally never heard that story. So that's really funny. I'm learning something new, Pierre.
I mean, it was a middle school class we had for like 2 weeks where we were learning French. I don't know why.
How funny.
I know nothing of French. Yeah.
I like that. It reminds me, because I've written and published a bunch of books, and I didn't want to do it under my name because I was a perfectionist. But if I did it under a pen name, a fake person, then I didn't care.
That's right.
I just didn't tell my friends and my family what my fake name was, my pen name, and just went ahead and published a bunch of books. And I'm like, whatever, who cares? Nobody knows it's me.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the idea.
That is true.
Yeah.
So I have to ask what you would tell people who want to move to Portugal. Like, what? I mean, what do you tell people? Because it's been hard. I've been finding that a bit of a challenge.
Telling people to move to Portugal?
No, telling the people who want to move to Portugal. Like, what are you saying to them? Like, about the cost of living now rising, the immigration stuff. I don't want to discourage people, but I want them to know the truth.
Sure.
So. Yeah, we've always been very honest about that. We've never tried to sugarcoat things. And things have changed in the past 5 years. So,
that's our next video.
Actually, some positive, some negative. So we have seen changes. But I mean, honestly, the main thing that I tell people is you hear it everywhere. The bureaucracy is no joke. Like, I mean, it can make you want to, hit your head against the wall. Yeah. But that being said, we lived in Spain and it was exactly the same. Yeah. So it's not just like a Portugal thing. Yeah. It is a lot of places have bureaucracy. Right. And even in the US, we have bureaucracy, but maybe you're coming at it from a different angle. So you've never experienced it as someone moving there or having to get a visa, for example. But
Green card.
Yeah, but we still have bureaucracy and just getting the paperwork to get your visa for over here. So I mean, it's no joke. And I think some people are like, I read it or I hear about it all the time. And then they don't realize just how bad it can be. And so that can, just kind of setting up realistic expectations there. that being said, obviously the cost of living has gone up, but it was so low to begin with that like it's still very realistic to live here on a budget. And you have to look at that yourself. Like, what is your budget and where am I going to put my money and does it still work for me? And for a lot of people, medical is a big, X factor, right? If they're spending so much money on health insurance in their home country and they don't have to, or they can lower it here, then it offsets something like taxes. Actually, Josh was just talking to someone about it because taxes are high here, but maybe, so, you have to look at it from like overall, like all of the aspects of it. So, okay, your taxes might go up, but does your medical go down so much that it offsets it and it still makes sense? And you still have the opportunity to live in Europe, some sort of like the adventure of just changing up where you are in your home country. So I mean, Portugal still, it's changed, it's evolved, but like you expect that it should. Every country has, a lot of countries are going through changes. So you just have to be aware of those changes and being willing to adapt, going in with zero expectations. If you think it's going to be like how it is where you're from, you're going to be disappointed. It's not. So you can't try to move that over here. So, I mean, just going in with realistic expectations of the changes, and then there will be changes moving forward as well. That's just kind of how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. So I think if we're looking at, people get very focused on like one aspect of the move, and I think the biggest advice is you've got to pause, take a step back, and look at like the whole picture of this. Like, if you're only looking at moving to a place like Portugal because of budgetary reasons, then maybe at this point in your journey, Portugal's not it. It might have been it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but maybe you need to look a little, further into Central or Eastern Europe because there's, let's say better value for money.
Or South America as
the
well.
Problem, yes, or South America. The problem is, you have other issues that you've got to deal with. Maybe now you're too far away from the East Coast, so the flights are more challenging to get back in case there's a family emergency. Maybe the climate doesn't suit you. Maybe, these other factors that, you have to take into consideration, I think, when you're making such a big life move by, moving countries, especially if you're doing it for the first time.
Yeah. And a big thing that we always tell people, the most important thing is you want to focus on what you're running to, not what you're running from. So if you're unhappy with some sort of situation in your home country and you're just like, I just have to get out, but you need to like where you're actually going. You can't just focus so much on like, I have to leave the US or the UK or, wherever you're coming from because of XYZ. Like, well, then you're not going to be happy in your new place because either you didn't do the proper research as to like why you're actually moving there, or you're just, since you're unhappy with what's going on there, what makes you think you're going to be happy in the place you're going to? So you have to be excited about Portugal, focus more on that rather than what you're leaving behind.
Yeah, good.
I also agree.
Yeah. Yeah. It's wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was like a famous Ram Dass saying.
Yeah.
and in recovery, it's pulling a geographic because you're trying to run away from your bad situation, whatever it is. And then you get to the new place. And I have a friend, and this has happened to her, and she's also lived in 5 different countries. And it took her a while to realize, wait, the common denominator is me.
Fix yourself.
Yeah. And she keeps trying to find like her perfect place. And I keep telling her there's no perfect place.
Right.
Yes.
And I love that she has the optimism that she'll find a good enough, perfect for her place, but she hasn't. So, and she's back in the US now trying to.
I think that was kind of very much part of our journey in moving from place to place, especially the first 3 so quickly, like 2 and 1, 2 years, 2 years and 1 year. It was like, it's not that we were chasing the perfect place, but we would very quickly realize that the place that we were in was not it. Like there were too many flaws with life. Singapore and both Portugal and Singapore are places that we know we could be long term. Not that we will be there long term, but we know we could be because we can get on and overlook some of the negatives.
Right. And that's the thing. The positives have to outweigh the negatives. So if you were going to tell people or give advice about moving other places besides Portugal? Do you have ideas, or do you have clients that want to move? Is there like a specific, like some areas more than others?
I mean, most of the people that reach out to us are looking at Europe, and I would say it's Portugal, Spain. Like a lot of people, it's Portugal, Spain. A few France, a few Italy, but it's mainly Portugal, Spain. And I think part of that is we've attracted that because we've lived in both, and we've made content about both, and we understand both.
Yeah. We do have connections all over Europe. Like if people are looking for visa assistance in different parts of Europe, then we have that. But we have a really strong ties with Portugal, obviously, and Spain too. So anything that someone might need for those two countries. And I think a lot of people find similarities. I mean, obviously it's the Iberian Peninsula, so there are a lot of similarities. So sometimes it's just trying to figure out like which visa works best for me, what city, what size of the city, location. Sometimes the language plays a factor. So it's mainly
Wait, they don't speak the same language?
Right. Yeah.
It's a joke, people.
Or as people are like, I learned Spanish in school, so I think it's going to be easier. And I'm like, good luck
luck.
with that. Sure. But yeah, so mainly it would be those two countries, I would say, but we can help with others. It's just been a lot more focused on Europe for sure the past few years because we're here and we've lived in both Spain and Portugal.
We get a decent amount of people actually from Asia Asia and Australia that are looking to move to Europe.
And South Africa too.
So, you know, like our connections with Singapore, and we do create content about Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. But, you know, these people like reach out to us about, you know, what our experience in Europe is like because they're also wanting to have an abroad experience in Europe. So that's cool too, to stay connected to those people because we did really enjoy that culture and that life.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Kuala Lumpur, a lot of people want to move there.
I mean, it's a cool place. I would live there.
We went back for a visit last year and just
around this time
really had a good time.
Yeah.
It brought back a lot of good memories. It felt very familiar and comfortable. We were in Kuala Lumpur and back to Singapore as a couple of places we went. And yeah, it was nice.
We were with my dad and my stepmom, and we were in a car together, like, you know, bumping down the road. And like Kalie and I just had this like kind of silly look on our face, like smiling at each other, like we felt the warm fuzzies, like being back in Southeast Asia. And then we were like, you know, what do you guys think? Talking to them, it was their first time in Asia, period. And you know, their eyes got real big, and they're like, how do we answer this? And I was just like, this, like Kalie and I, we looked at each other. It's like it just feels so familiar. It feels just like normal. And they were like, this feels nothing like normal. Like,
especially in Kuala Lumpur. It's a little more structured and organized in Singapore.
For sure. They love Singapore.
In Kuala Lumpur, I think Josh's stepmom was like holding onto the chairs, like as we were like driving and stuff. And it's just like, she's like, and I was like, we're like, yeah, this feels right.
But it's funny thinking about that because it felt very normal for us. But then because they had never experienced the culture, it felt very abnormal to them.
Right. And I was going to ask how your parents deal with, like, hate what you guys have done and that you've left the US.
It's evolved over the years.
The big joke was it took Josh's family about 5 years before they stopped asking, when are you coming home? When are you going to come get a real job, you know, start your life? And everyone would say, oh, do it before you have kids and before you have to have a real job. And we're like, what? I mean, we were seeing other people do it with kids. We're like, we'll do it when we have kids. So Josh's family, it took about 5 years. I think by the time we hit Saudi, they're like, I don't know.
These guys
are coming back to the US. My family traveled a lot growing up. So I think it's, you know, my parents were not surprised when I was like, I graduated university and I was like, all right, I'm going to Europe.
Yeah.
They weren't surprised. So they're just like, okay, we'll just visit you, which they do. Aww. They visited everywhere we've been.
Yes.
But so I think it was not a surprise.
Except Saudi,
because you couldn't at that point too. We met them somewhere, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, my family is not surprised. My brother has also lived abroad too. So it's just a little more normal for us. It's not as normal for Josh's family, but I think that they've embraced, like, they come and visit us in a lot of places, which I think they probably wouldn't have done. They probably wouldn't have traveled to different places.
My little sister actually is in town. She's finishing up 90 days of living in Portugal or staying in Portugal. And she's on a work sabbatical as a nurse and decided to use her hospital signing bonus to live here essentially. And
for 3 months.
She loves it.
She's trying to figure out how to move here.
Yeah, she absolutely loves it here and loves the idea of living abroad. So that's
Yeah.
been really cool to see.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I think, it's hard. It's hard when your family's not supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes it makes it
And
makes it
we've
a little
seen those
difficult.
stories for sure. We've actually worked with some people where they've moved because one spouse gets a job or really pushes for the move.
Yeah.
And oh, if the other
And the other
spouse
one
isn't
doesn't
on
want it.
board, they
They
always
always go
return
back to the
home.
home country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never works out.
Yeah. That's
But yeah,
rough.
thankfully Josh and I are both on the same page. And when we travel, we're always like, could we live here? And I mean, all of that, especially if you watch our videos when we always talk
Yeah.
about would you expat that. Thankfully,
Right.
most of the time we're on the same page. So
Yeah.
that's helpful.
Yeah, you almost always agree. It's cute. But I think
Yeah.
I saw one where you didn't. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in Portugal before I moved here.
It's probably like some of the neighborhoods that we talk about or the
Yeah.
cities. Like usually we're in lockstep when it comes to the countries.
Yeah.
But for sure, like
Sometimes
we had
cities.
some funny moments filming the neighborhood guides
Mhm.
where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, how do you rate this neighborhood? Would you live here? And we are on two opposite ends of the spectrum for
Yeah.
different reasons as well.
Right.
You know, it's like I don't even know you anymore.
Wait, what? So we can live in the same city, but not in the same neighborhood, apparently.
But it's good for other people to hear that, right?
Yeah,
They need
I think
to,
so.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I think so too. So a couple last things. What would you tell people? Is there anything that I haven't asked that you want to, I mean, I'm going to ask you about how they get in touch with you and find you and stuff, but just like an overall information about moving abroad.
I mean, I think what we talked about before, just doing your research. For one, again, not leaving your home country because you're trying to get away from something, but like explore where you want to go and because you want to go there. You know, is that Portugal or is it somewhere in South America or is it somewhere in Asia because you actually want to go to that location, not because you're just trying to get away from something. Budget is a really big thing too, as well. Just making sure that you can set yourself up. So, because you're always going to go when you move to a new place, the first few months are always going to be a lot more expensive
I
than
just wrote about that. Yes,
it's so
it's so true.
true.
Yeah.
I call them like the setup costs. You know, it's just, but it's the same
Yeah.
like when you move, if you're in the States and you move, you know, to a different state,
Yeah.
you have all these setup costs, you know, whether
Right.
that's just getting your home the way that you need it to be because you
Yeah.
didn't move certain things or figuring out, you know, when you move abroad, you have to figure stuff out. And sometimes you end up in the more expensive grocery store and you didn't know that, right? So you're spending more money. And so like these are all learning things. So you want to give yourself a bigger budget in the first few months for sure, but then also tracking it to make sure like, here's where I'm spending my money. Wait a second.
Yeah.
I'm spending my money on so much of this and I didn't even realize it. A lot of it is like out for wine. You know, wine is so cheap. And so it's like, oh, I'll just go out for like a glass of wine with a friend. And then you realize like you're spending a lot of money and you're drinking a lot more than you used to or that maybe you budgeted for.
Yeah.
So just kind of, you know, having that stuff in mind will make the transition a little smoother and not so like, oh my gosh, like all my money's gone. I made a big mistake because I didn't budget, right? It's probably not that, but it's just like keeping that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't want to get too heady here, but I think that people really should check in on themselves every, 3 to 6 months and just kind of see where they're at with their move and their adaptation. And I mean, even simple things like the budget, every 6 months, just kind of figure out like, am I spending okay compared to what I thought I would? Because like Kalie said, with the startup costs, you also have a period of time after you move where you figure out like how to be more budget conscientious.
Yeah.
And then you move into a different phase where lifestyle creep hits. You start to get comfortable and you're like, nah, I'm in the groove and I've got my budget under control. And then you start spending more or bringing other subscriptions or, this little treat into your life. And then you start to compound that stuff. And now you have this lifestyle creep that your budget's now 10% more than it used to be. And that's not because of inflation. It's just lifestyle creep. You've added more expenses to your life. So if you're touching base with yourself on the financial side every 6 months or so, it can help you out in the long run. But also mentally, like,
and
where
the
am
health
I at?
side,
Do I have friends here? Am I cool?
Community.
Am I just friends with these people because they speak the same language as me? Or do I really enjoy spending time with them? Because I think you need to you need to hang out with people you enjoy versus the people that are comfortable because you just speak the same language.
Yeah.
Yeah. So finding different hobbies that are the same, like if you like hiking, get into a hiking group. And that's a good way to meet all different nationalities. It doesn't just have to be English speakers, like native English speakers. Maybe you're meeting like French and obviously locals like Portuguese, or just wherever you are. If you can find a hobby, that's a really great connection, because you already have like a connection with that person because it's something that you all enjoy doing. So it just makes it easier as well to make friends. But yeah, just checking in on your mental health, and then also your physical health as well. Like I think a lot of people fall into the misconception that, well, I walk everywhere now, so I'm okay. But then like, the joke is, but you're walking from like pastry shop to pastry shop. So are you,
or
how
bar
many,
to bar.
or bar to bar,
wine glass
so
to
it's
wine
like,
glass.
so you're going to have a different lifestyle than, if you're coming from the US, you probably drove a lot. Okay. So now you're walking a lot, which is really good for your health, but you're also, because of the cafe culture or like the social aspect here, maybe you're eating out more, so how is that affecting your health, or you're drinking more, or whatever that might look like. So just checking in on like, okay, my life is different than what it was where, I came from. Am I doing all right with that? And what does that look like?
Yeah, good points. Very true. Okay, so now where can people find you?
Well, obviously we have a channel called Expats Everywhere. So we put out a lot of information on there. You can always email us. Generally, people with questions email me, which is info@expatseverywhere.com. I do consultations as well. So we can always, I do 30 and 60-minute consultations. If people have questions, you can jump on a call there. And then I recently started a new business. It's called Slate and Key. So you can find our website, slateandkey.com, where it's a more like hands-on white glove service. So we found with Expats Everywhere that we love giving information out and resources. And we're like, here you can go do it on your own. So if you're looking to do more of the DIY budget, then that would be more Expats Everywhere. But then I did find that people were coming back saying, I need a lot more help, and I don't want to do this myself. Whether that's because, you're in your job and you're getting ready to retire, and you just don't have the time. You're just like, I would rather someone do it myself. Or you're just like, I just don't want to mess this up. I'm very concerned. I get that a lot. Like, I just need someone to hold my hand and do it for me. So that's why I started this more all-inclusive company called Slate and Key, that it's more about the visa. So sometimes you get so focused on, I just need to get my visa, but then it's like, have you thought about all the other things? Like, you're actually moving. You're moving your life.
It's more than just the visa.
Yeah,
what you mean.
It's you, of course the visa is one aspect. You have to have that to move, but like, that's not everything. Have you thought about all the little things that go into the actual move, and when you're here, what life is like? So that's why that one's a bit more of an all-inclusive. So and that just was born out of the fact that people were asking for it. So we have quite a range. With the Expats Everywhere side or the Slate and Key side, we're happy to help with whatever your comfort level is.
And lastly, we had you on our podcast, Let's Get Moving, or Let's Move to Portugal. So the Expats Everywhere podcast that people can find. Actually, we can probably link it to this so people can hear your side of things when it comes to living in Portugal.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you guys still have your class because I took your class to get the D7 visa?
Yeah. So we still have the e-course that we continue to update because the goalposts move.
Yep, Portugal has to change things up.
Keep changing. So yeah, we stay current on that course. So it evolves over time.
We have a few of them. There's the D7, the D8, and then we also have created bundles, so you can include a consultation with me if you would like. And then we also have a Living in Portugal course, which I think a lot of people don't know that it exists, but it's all the things like when you get here. All right, are you getting your public healthcare number to get in the public healthcare system? What are you doing for setting up your phone or your utilities, or all those little things, again, that you don't think of, but you definitely need when you get here. So we have that course as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I didn't know you had that. That's cool. I got here. I didn't know how to get furniture. I moved into an empty apartment. I knew nothing. I did it all on my own. It was very confusing.
Yeah, it's doable. You can do it on your own. Like, you don't need someone, but it all just depends on your comfort level and how much help you want along the way.
And how many mistakes you're willing to make.
Yeah.
Yes. Which that is learning, right? It's like to learn, you have to make mistakes, and that is part of the learning process.
Yeah. So true. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else you want to say that I didn't ask?
I don't think
I mean, we can get you a discount code for your audience for the courses.
Okay.
Yeah, so we could do that and get that in the description section of this for sure.
Okay. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks. This was fun. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate your guys' time. I'm busy, but I think you're busier.
We love this stuff.